A warm welcome to Diski Talk with Luyolo. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I'll ask that you please subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So, it's all things MTN 8 WAFA WAFA semi-finals. So, on today's episode, I'm going to have a look at the two semi-finals that will be contested between Mamelodi Sundowns versus Golden Arrows and Cape Town City versus Swallows. So, we will then start with a tactical preview of Mamelodi Sundowns versus Golden Arrows. So, with regards then to Mamelodi Sundowns, we do know that they line up in their traditional 3-4-3 system. And the blue team will represent Mamelodi Sundowns, and then the red team will represent Golden Arrows. So let's have a look then at who they could potentially go with. So when we then have a look at the back three, I think the back three potentially stays the same, with Lebusa left side at centre half. You got Rivaldo Coetzee, who drops in as your libero. You got Rashun Duruk. And then you've got winning goals. However, a special mention is that Ricardo Nascimento is back in training with Mamelodi Sundowns, so he could look to slot in his back line. Maybe for Lebusa, who hasn't had the best of performances as of late, and maybe then you could have Nascimento coming in, and then you've got Rivaldo Coetzee, and then you've got Rashun Duruk. However, from a consistency perspective, and because Nascimento might be lacking game time and lacking that fitness and that sharpness, they might just maybe then go with the tried and tested of Lebusa, Rivaldo Coetzee and Rashun Duruk. And then in midfield, they've persisted with a midfield two of Toby Mvala and Hashim Domingo. However, I just feel like for more fluidity in midfield, A, and B, ball retention, I think Kulisi needs to come back into midfield. He needs to come back into midfield alongside Hashim Domingo. I think they complement each other a lot better, as when we look at the two players from a counter-pressing perspective, firstly, they tick that box. On the ball, very comfortable, they tick that box, and they can play in tight spaces, half spaces, and they can also play higher up the pitch. And with Toby Mvala, I think he struggles with that at times. However, I will acknowledge the combat nature that he brings to Mamelodi Sundowns, and that energy as well when it comes to ball winning. But those are the two that I would go with in midfield. But it will most likely be Toby Mvala and Hashim Domingo. As the right wing back, we've seen Mudau has started there for Sundowns. And on the left-hand side, Lila K has started there for Sundowns as well. And then the three up front, we've seen Shalulile, Zwane, and then we've seen Mudiba start there as well. However, it does look like Serino is getting back into the thick of things. So I wouldn't be surprised if he started, because I think he complements these two a lot better than a Mudiba would. And actually, I prefer Serino starting there as opposed to Mudiba, because I just think that when Sundowns get into these areas, I think he understands the game a lot better with regards to link-up play. He's a lot more fluid, he's a lot more intelligent, and he's also got an eye for goal. He also interchanges with Zwane very well. And he can also overload and double up with Zwane in one half space, where they look to combine with 1-2s and look to go through on goal. So that is potentially how Sundowns will line up. But, you know, other players to mention, Kapinga, Erasmus, Jali. These are other players who got so much quality, who can actually come into this Mamelodi Sundowns side and make a difference. Maybe if they want to shake things up a bit, because in the past couple of games, Sundowns, yeah, they haven't looked their best, and they haven't really been playing that free flowing, fluid, passing football of theirs, which is crisp, that we know. So maybe they could look to shake things up a bit. But that is what it will look like. So a 3-4-3, you've got Lebusa, you've got Rivaldo Kutsia, Rashun Duruk, Mwini in goals, you've got Mvala, you've got Hashim Domingo, Mudau's the right wing back, Lake is the left wing back, you've got Zwane, Serino Mudiba, and then you've got Shalu Lile. So then when we have a look at Golden Arrows, so first and foremost, I must say that I've been thoroughly impressed with Golden Arrows and how well Siama has done with this Golden Arrows side, you know, and I think that he's taken over Manda Ngiazi very well. And I think the foundation that Ngiazi left, because when you look at their philosophies, you know, very similar. They cut from the same cloth, as they have a very similar approach to football. So the foundation that Ngiazi left is the foundation which Siama's building upon, and I've been very impressed. In the MTN 8 against Supersport, they played very well, and within the league as well, they've already picked up the maximum points. So I've been very impressed with this Golden Arrow side and how they've been able to institute a beautiful style of play, but which also creates chances and sees them finishing off those chances. So with Golden Arrows, then they do go with a 4-4-1-1, and in goals they've got Mlungwane. At right back, we've got Thokozisi Dube. We've got a centre-back pairing of Matian as the right-sided centre-half. We've got Sibisi as the left-sided centre-half. At left-back, we've got Pele, who for me, you know, is new into the team by virtue of the fact that Divine Lunga and Kombelo used to occupy that position, but he now comes into this Golden Arrow side. Very impressed with his energy and how he reads the game. And then in the heart of midfield, we've got Lamini and then we've got Ndwandwe, who have been very solid in the heart of midfield for Golden Arrows. Very instrumental in building up play, but they also not afraid to get stuck in. They will get stuck in when they have to. So they institute that free-flowing passing football, and they progress the play and they develop the build-up from a Golden Arrows perspective. And then when we look at it on the right wing, they've got Nduduzo Sibia, but we do know Sibia does occupy that half space, and then Dube goes, you know. So that's the relationship between fullback and winger. Sibia is more of an attacking midfielder, a playmaker who likes to occupy the half space and pop up into zone 14. That's what he likes doing, you know, and he does it ever so well. You know, he's also got an eye for goal, and he makes this Golden Arrow side tick, you know, and at times you will see him come into midfield. They will have an overload in midfield where they then look to overload the central zones. And then when you have a look at the man who plays behind the striker, you've got Mchali who plays there, and then you've got Modi as the left winger, who has been, look, a very, very exciting player, you know. Very good out wide, likes going one-on-one with his man, but he can also come in, and he's got an eye for goal as well, you know. And whenever he does go one-on-one with his man and he beats his man, he can also deliver a cross. And then up front, you got two options. You got Mutizwa, or you've got Michael Boy Kumede, who's also a very strong player. And I love the duality and the balance and the different dimension and the different dynamics that both players bring to this Golden Arrow side in Mutizwa and in Michael Boy Kumede. Either one of them could start up front. So when we have a look at this game then, and the interesting thing about this game is that both teams love to play football. They both like to put their foot on the ball, and they both love shifting the ball, you know. And another interesting thing then is that both teams like to overload central zones and half spaces, you know, and are also reliant on wing play. So this game is going to be very interesting, and I don't see a high goal scoring encounter because I think to a certain degree these teams will nullify each other. So yes, they'll play that free-flowing fluid football, but it's going to be very difficult for both teams to impose themselves by virtue of the fact of how structured both teams are, you know. And for this game, I think Teba Zwane is in fine form, and he could be the player looking to exploit the half spaces and look to continue with these impressive goal scoring record. And he's going to be very influential and key. And on the left hand side, Lila K is another player I've pinpointed as a key player, and I say that because, you know, Duduzo Sbia is not the most defensively sound or tactically sound, so he's not going to drop back and offer that defensive cover for Dube whenever it gets tough. So Laila K could have a field day on that side. And then when we have a look at golden arrows, looking at Duduzo Sbia and Pule Modi as well. And the reason why I'm looking at both of the wingers is because their ability to be able to occupy the half spaces. So this is what Sundowns have struggled with. Whenever a team is brave against Mamelodi Sundowns, overloads the midfield and they take risks and they attack through the half spaces and through those channels, they find joy, you know. And because Lebusa hasn't had the best of performances, I think then Duduzo Sbia could look to exploit the space. And from this side, Modi starting wide, coming in, could look to exploit that space as well. So it's going to be very interesting then as to how this game plays out, as we do know that this is the first leg. There is 2 legs in the semi-final of the MTN 8 WAFA WAFA. So I then foresee Mamelodi Sundowns winning this game 1-0. I think it's going to be a very, very tight game. And I foresee Themba Zwane getting onto the goal scoring sheet, and I think Ashalulile will be very instrumental with regards to how he runs that defense dragon and how he stretches the line. So Ashalulile might not always pop up with the goals, but what I love about him is how he works off the ball and what he gives to this Mamelodi Sundowns side. So then moving on then along to the next fixture, which is Cape Town City versus Swallows. So then, with regards to Cape Town City, we do know that Eric Tinkler does like to line up with sort of a hybrid formation. I would say a 4-2-3-1, which sometimes becomes a 4-4-2, but we will then go with a 4-2-3-1 and say that this is a second striker who joins, which is Mduduzi Mdantsane. So how he has started as of recent, he's had Marquez in goals. He's at Mkize at right back, 2 centre halves of Phillies and Mubara, and then you got Mashiko at left back, who started the season off very well. And then in the heart of midfield, they've had Mukeke and Makola, and then as the left winger, Surprise Ralani, no surprise there, mind the pun. And then at right wing, they've started with Craig Martin. And then they've had Duduzi Mdantsane, who often joins as a second striker but can come into midfield to assist. And then up front, they started with Mayo so far. But I'd like to give a special mention to a couple of players. So Fakhri Lakay, who could come in as the striker. You've got Ajagan, who's been very impressive whenever he's had those cameo roles, who can also come in and either play up front or play as an attacking midfielder. And then Notata as well. Notata is another player that can come into the midfield and look to replace Amakola, as we do know that he goes box to box. He offers a lot more with regards to energy and also from a counter-pressing perspective. And then last but not least, Tashrik Morris. You know, he does offer a different dynamic because he is then that target man, that number 9 who can hold up play and then bring a Surprise Ralani into the game, bring Craig Martin in, hold up play from Duduzi Mdantsane whenever he does then start to occupy that zone 14 and central zones, or whenever he does look to go beyond Tashrik Morris. So that's the duality with Cape Town City and the versatility that comes with this side and the options that they have. You know, there's so many options and it's such a tactically and technically well-refined team, and that's what I love about Eric Tinkler's Cape Town City side. And then when we then have a look at Swallows, so with Swallows then in goals, you're looking at Virgil Fries, a back 4 of Vuyomere, right-sided centre-half, Junaid Said, Wandisile Litlabika as the left-sided centre-half, and then Thabo Matlaba. However, a special mention does go to Muhammad, who I think could potentially walk into this lineup and then become the left-sided centre-half. So from a tactical perspective and progressing the ball perspective from building up phase, I think it would make so much sense when you have a left-footed, left-sided centre-half. So he opens up like that, Matlaba goes, and then they start to play, you know. But Junaid Said and Wandisile Litlabika have been a very solid centre-half pairing. So that's the back four for Swallows. And then in midfield, we've had Musa Nyatama, who sat as the pivot. And then you've had two number 8 of Cheeseboy Mukwena. You've had Mato as well. But given Tibedi has returned to Swallows, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Given Tibedi occupy the left half space and being the number 8 then who will occupy and look to go box to box. We do know that Brandon Truter is a very big admirer of Given Tibedi, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him coming back into this encounter. Also from an historical perspective, Given Tibedi, whenever he has played against Cape Town City, he's been always able to play very well. He's been able to impose himself on Cape Town City, you know, and he is a player who is very creative and, you know, he plays football in a very beautiful manner. He's got this style of play which, you know, a lot of people say is synonymous to Thabo Moki. You know, I don't like comparing players, you know, but you know, he's got that thing about him, you know, and very creative, very expressive player in midfield who Swallows could look to build this team around. And then when you look at their options in the wide area, there's many options. On the right side, they can start with Ndlovu, they can start with Mbokoma, they can start with Bazadine. On the left side, they can start with Makhalwa, they can start with Solomons, they can start with Saleng. So many options on the wing, you know. I'll let you guys at home decide. Who do you think they go with on either wing? Tell me, who do you think starts at left wing? Who starts at right wing? And then up front, main man, Khamaldeen, you know, very instrumental. And so far, I would say that he's been the standout player within the MTN 8 tournament so far. With that performance of his against Orlando Pirates, he's been doing really, really well for this Swallows side. So then when we have a look then at how this game potentially plays out, you know, I see it as a midfield battle. So then I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Notata coming back in to offer those legs to be able then to nullify the midfield of Swallows and to then look to progress play as well and look to add an extra body in there from an energy perspective, because Makola, I don't think he gives you that box-to-box threat as well as Nodata does, you know. So I think it will be a game which will be heavily saturated in midfield. Both teams will look to play the ball. Both teams will look to get their foot on the ball, dictate terms, look to exploit those half spaces and overload the central spaces as well. So I think this is going to be a very interesting encounter. Synonymous to that Mamelodi Sundowns versus Golden Arrows one, I think they will nullify each other, because these are two teams that have such a tactically and technically refined approach to this beautiful game. So I think it's going to be a very interesting encounter. But I will say that the two players that we need to watch out for from each side, so Surprise Ralane and Duduzi Mtanzane, two players to watch out for, as we all know their threat and what they can do. And then from a Swallows perspective, Khamaldeen, very important. And then Wandi Sileli Tabika, I think, will be very important this game, especially with regards to how does he look to nullify Mayo whenever he occupies that position, or if it's a Tashik Morris or if it's a Fakhile K, how does he deal with that threat? Especially because Duduzi Mtanzane does join, then it sort of becomes a 2 up front. He becomes a second striker. You know, how does he deal with that? Duduzi Mtanzane, guys, very, very dangerous, this man. Once he gets into that fine goal-scoring form, nothing stops him. He goes on and he just keeps scoring. And from a historical perspective, he does love a goal against Swallows. So, at home, do let me know, what do you guys make of this encounter? Who do you think comes out on top when it comes to Cape Town City versus Swallows? Look, with this one, because it's the first leg, I'm going to go for 1-1. It's going to be tough. I think this game will be decided in the second leg later on in September. So, we've come to the end of yet another special episode of Diski Talk with Luyolo. So, do let me know, what do you guys make of the first semi-final, Mamelodi Sundowns versus Golden Arrows? who's the winner there, you know, and the different segments and the different players that I went through. And then the second semi-final, Cape Town City versus Swallows, who comes out on top there? Or do you guys agree with me? Do you think it will be a draw? Or do you see Cape Town City edging Swallows? Or do you see Swallows edging Cape Town City? Thank you very much for tuning in to yet another special episode of Disky Talk with Luyolo. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Signing out.